And so were your mixers just like people getting to know each other? Was there any format to the original mixers that you started?
Yeah, in the early in the first year, they were just monthly mixers. It was just basically people coming together and networking at these bars, and first in Santa Monica and then in Hollywood. What happened was the mixers got so large because, well, I did a few things. One of my friends at the time was a Hollywood promoter, and was a promoter for some of these clubs that back in that time were really hard to get into. So, but people still wanted to go. So I was able to say, hey, look, if I bring in some some people into your bar or club on a weekday when it's probably not that crowded, could we do that? And he was like, that's a great idea. Let's do it. So we did it. And that helped grow too. So by the end of that first year with the monthly events at the cool Hollywood clubs, we had like 400 some people at these events with these like lines going down the block to get into the events. So it was at that time that some people were like, Kevin, these events are great. There are a lot of people, but I'm interested in digital music, or I'm interested in digital marketing and social media, or I'm interested in finding a VC. They had these like very specific things, and it was a little bit difficult to find someone who could talk about that in a large networking event with like a couple hundred people. So that's when I decided to organize my first panel, which was a panel on digital music. Fortunately, at the time, MySpace was a part of Fox Interactive Media, and I was able to have some people speak about music from there. And then I had some other friends who also were in the digital music space. So we had our first panel was on digital music, and it was sold out. Like there was a line to get in. Everyone was standing out everywhere in the bar that we held it at. We filled up the capacity right away. So I was like, wow, I guess there was a need for some sort of panel on this to talk about this because we are at capacity. So then I started to launch a panel series, doing these panels with different topics that people were interested in. And kind of my goal or a trend you could see is I kind of like do what people tell me to do. Like it was a friend of mine who was like, you should do a music panel, or you should do a panel because these events are too crowded. Then people would just start suggesting other themes for panels. And since I worked at Fox and had some connections, having also worked at Sony Pictures Digital, I know a lot of people in the entertainment tech space. So our first events were entertainment tech, and I would just call friends who I knew and said, hey, can you be on a panel? And they were like, sure. So it worked out very well.
So Kevin, you essentially built this as a conduit. You're a conduit in almost like the same way actors are a conduit. You ended up being the combination of the voice of what the marketplace wanted and the activator of the thing that the marketplace wanted. Like you're a conduit.
Yeah, I guess that's the way to think of it. I also like to refer to it as being a connector. I just happen to have I happen to have my feet, my hands, I just happen to know a lot of people in a lot of different circles, and I'm able to bring people together and have people meet because there are just a lot of different circles in LA, both in entertainment and non-entertainment, and VCs and investors and startup founders and actors and bands, and a lot of times I notice just doing what I do is that sometimes their circles don't overlap. So digital AI is basically a way to get these, if you're thinking in a Venn diagram, to get these like different circles to interact and just see what happens.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the LA Business Podcast. If you like what we're doing on this podcast, please consider subscribing on Apple or Google Play, leaving a 5-star review, and sharing with your friends. If you have any questions, comments, or recommendations for a guest you'd like to hear on this podcast, please email me, robert@brillmedia.co. Thank you. Have a fantastic day.